My speech is about zoos and why they are not good for wildlife. Wildlife conservation is the practice of protecting plant and animal species and their habitat. Wildlife also plays a big part of our world in the ecosystem. Everyone enjoys going to the zoo with their family and friends, but no one really knows how the animals are being treated. Most people will visit zoos on a day when they want to go see the monkeys play, watch the elephants roam, or feed the giraffes. People often don't understand why zoos are harmful to the animals they captivate and hold in these small areas instead of in the wild. Other people dislike zoos and understand what goes on in them, and they want them banned to help save wildlife conservation. In zoos, even under the best care and environment, it cannot replicate the animal's natural habitat. It is trapped in an enclosure that restrains the animals from doing things that are most important to them, like running, roaming, flying, climbing, and more. Zoos are teaching people and kids that it is acceptable to interrupt an animal's life and keep them trapped in captivity where they are bored, lonely, cramped in a small space, deprived from all control over their lives, and far from their natural homes in the wild. These animals are in a prison that they cannot escape from. The main points I'm going to speak on today are how zoos are harmful to the animals that they captivate, the reason zoos are not a solution to wildlife conservation, and lastly, how they fail in education. And here's some pictures of some zoos and some animals. Zoos are harmful to the animals they enclose in cages, and this causes the animals to suffer. According to freedomforanimals.org, a government-funded study of elephants showed 54% having behavior problems. One elephant that was studied in only 24 hours showed 61% of behavior problems, like pacing back and forth or swinging their trunk in the same motion back and forth. Lions tend to spend 41% of their time in zoos pacing back and forth, and it is not easy for us to recognize these signs in animals because we often only usually see them in zoos. When animals are stressed, their behaviors can be seen as repetitive movements, pacing back and forth, head bobbing, rocking, sitting motionless, biting the bars of their enclosure. A or B is abnormal repetitive behavior. These kind of behaviors can be found in zoo animals caused by boredom, depression, or psychosis. And this is a video of a jaguar pacing back and forth, caused by stress. Animals can often die easily in zoos when they are not cared for. Surplus animals are the animals that are unwanted or in the way because there is no more space. They can be killed, fed to the other animals in the zoo, or sold to other zoos, which can be harmful and very stressful for the animal. Animals also die prematurely in zoos. Like African elephants live up to 3 times as long in the wild than they do in zoos. According to thedodo.org, incidents at South Lake Safari Zoo causes almost 500 animal deaths in under 4 years. A report of 486 animals dying of multiple cases, including emancipation and hypothermia, all between December 2013 and September 2016. While zoos are very harmful to animals, they are clearly not the solution to wildlife conservation. Zoos may claim to help with conservation, but in reality, hardly any zoos register their animals on an international database, which means animals are not endangered at all. Zoos don't provide the right type of environment for animals. Zoos cannot provide enough space for certain animals, and in this case, for animals that usually travel and roam large distances in their natural habitat. A small enclosure is not healthy for these types of animals. The majority of animals that are born in zoos are not prepared to be released into the wild. Captive bred animals, including threatened species like elephants, polar bears, gorillas, tigers, and monkeys are almost impossible to release back into the wild. The breeding programs are not healthy for the animals either. They breed the animals in terms of releasing them into the wild, but in reality, they are breeding them for the attraction of visitors. Zoo babies are crowd pleasers, but always result in a surplus of less cute animals when they grow up that are sold or even killed. Zoos tend to use exotic animals and popular animals to draw a bigger crowd in, rather than taking the animals in that are endangered. All of the zoos in the world have many animals for crowds of people to look at, but one of the main goals of a zoo is to educate visitors on the animals that they are seeing. This is not the case for hardly any zoos. Zoos often try to hide the cruelty of their animals behind a mask of education for conservation. Zoos failing in educating the visitors that come to watch the animals. Zoos may claim to provide education of these animals, but visitors only spend a few minutes or maybe just a few seconds at each enclosure, where they only seek entertainment instead of learning about the animal. Most zoo enclosures are small and often lack the basic understanding of these animals. The signs in front of the displays often only give the animal species, diet, and natural range. They do not put information about their natural needs because often they are never met in these zoos. Birds' wings can be clipped so that they cannot fly. Aquatic animals may go without the right amount of water, and animals that normally live in large groups are often put alone or in just a pair. British sociologists gathered data from kids visiting a zoo. The children were between 7 and 15 years old. The researchers found that 59% of these children who visited the zoo had negative educational outcomes. Although there are some zoos that may be bad for most animals because of the way they are treated and not took care of, there are some good zoos that actually treat their animals good and make sure every animal is well emotionally and physically. A good zoo will provide care to their animals while also protecting them. For some species, it is possible for them to be kept in zoos and have the quality of life almost as high as it would be if they were living in the wild. The animals living in zoos can be kept safe from a threat or stress of predators chasing them or even killing them. There are also diseases and parasites that can go around from animal to animal in the wild, and zoos can help to eliminate that. Even though zoos can be good and healthy for some animals, it is not good to be kept captive and away from a large group. It can also take away survival skills for some animals. Animals like elephants need lots of space to roam. On average, an elephant will walk up to 30 miles a day, and being kept captive in a small space is not healthy for him. They also live with large groups that have family and friends in them, and zoos often separate them into groups of 2 or 3. Now that we have explored the topic, let us recap the main points. Even though zoos don't seem like a good place for animals, and they seem to be the safest place, often people don't understand how harmful zoos can be to the creatures and how they can affect the lifestyle. Zoos may be harmful to the animals and make their life miserable. Zoos do not help with wildlife conservation. It is making it worse by the way animals live and die. And zoos are meant to teach people that visit, but instead are only used as forms of entertainment. There's my works cited.